What is up? Nicsmas 2021, aka Directions for Acting Like an Adult. Or Don't Act Like an Asshole, whichever one feels more appropriate to you. Some people told me their kids are watching, so I've been trying to say a-hole more, and somebody said they told their son that means awesome hole. I don't know why you would tell your kid not to be an awesome hole. Sounds like you would want them to be an awesome hole, but not an a-hole. We'll get into it. I'm just killing time. Let everybody get here on time. Directions for acting like an adult. This one is a little bit different tone, perhaps. Maybe not. Never go as planned. That's why I don't bother planning. And again, I just reiterate, hopefully you can kind of see the whole uncertainty, certainty, not sticking rigidly to a plan in the way that I built Nicsmas this year. So, this is day 8. This is Directions for Acting Like an Adult. This is probably the thing we would say is acting like an adult the most. It's probably the most important part of all of this. You have to understand, or you have to at least be open to considering some of the other stuff we talked about. You don't have to fully understand it. You don't have to fully agree. And you are welcome to form your own opinions. I hope you do form your own opinions. But no matter which opinion you decide to adopt, if and when you do close a loop and adopt a narrative, which I hope takes you a very, very long time. We talked about it yesterday. It's the rushing to close a loop. It is the rushing to jump to a conclusion, or the rushing to develop a narrative that you rob yourself an opportunity of learning. Because once we adopt a narrative, we just fit things to it. We don't learn. We just find creative ways to fit evidence to our narrative, and we hold on to it for dear life, and that makes us kind of an a-hole. I think I'm done being surprised with how powerful the next day of Nicsmas is going to be, but we'll see. Oh, I got my LaCroix. See? Always LaCroix. So, this one, it's a little bit less. It's a little bit more in your face, in the sense that I'll say, like, hey, just journal. It's not going to feel like it's very difficult, but you might have a hard time with it, and you're kind of like, okay, I'll try this. This might be something where you say, I don't actually want to try this. And that's okay. It is Christmas Eve. If you are going to do something like this, it would be in the next 2 days. Would be the most appropriate time. It's a good excuse. Should do this all the time, but this is a good excuse. Okay. So we have our 6-word updates. Go ahead, hit your 6-word update. It's the link is there if you want to wait and just kind of let things percolate before you do. Typically, want the 6-word update to be really about everything that's led up to this point. Don't want you to craft a 6-word update about today necessarily right away, because that's kind of closing a loop really quickly. And of course, we'll do the standard. Let's look at Twitter. The conversation I had this morning, and then I just tweeted it. That's basically what I do. How does everything sell out immediately before it's even announced publicly? And if you're a Nicsmas last year, if you know anything about what we do in crypto, we are like the anti-hype, the anti-marketers, and still sell everything out faster than almost everybody. I'll give you an example. And again, this is just recency. This isn't necessarily the most important thing. It's just the most recent thing. This was a $300,000 raise. Everybody was nervous except for me and the people that know me, of course. Like, how are we going to get a $300,000 in 12 hours without any marketing at all? And we ended up 1,600% oversubscribed. 1,600% immediately. And this is the most recent, or Nicsmas. I will not be surprised if the CCA sells out before I make a strong call to action or give a deadline. Of course, both of those things might be necessary. But it's a combination of allegiance capital. I say, hey, this is probably how you're going to feel. This is what's going to happen. I am not going to convince you to do anything. You need to recognize it for yourself. And then the evidence comes, and that happens over and over time. And what people learn, hopefully, the evidence is there, and I hope it continues, and I get this feedback sometimes. The evidence is whatever Nick does, if I get in early, I can't lose. Right? And if that's if that's the narrative that is crafted from watching the evidence over time, then it becomes really easy to navigate, close the gap, right? This isn't just true in business or crypto or whatever. You are starting to identify, hopefully, where you're at and where you want to be. That is very difficult. Some people are realizing that's a pretty difficult thing to do, to really be honest with yourself and then figure out who you are so you can play your game. Here's the thing. Talked about it yesterday. Don't be an a-hole. And let me go through my slides because I think it's in here. We don't want to be an a-hole to the people that matter most, because here's something that I believe very firmly, and you can disagree. Dr. Jeff Spencer has spent a lot of time helping me realize and validate this thought. Nobody wins alone. That's why I made such a strong argument yesterday that you're being a real a-hole if you are isolating the people that are the most important to you, your team, your future, the ones that are on the journey with you, for a bunch of strangers that aren't. Because there is a trade-off, right? I'll give you 2 quotes of the day from Carrie Patterson. Carrie Patterson wrote the book Crucial Conversations. I strongly recommend that book to everybody on the planet. Crucial Conversations. And Dicka, I hope you can watch this one. I'll try to be quick. When people withhold meaning from one another individually, smart people can do collectively stupid things. Okay? When people withhold meaning from one another, individually smart people can do collectively stupid things. That's your team, that's your spouse, that's your family. It's very important, very, very important that we're sitting here finding all this new meaning about who we are, what it means, what we value. If you withhold that from the people that matter the most to you, you do not develop the skill to communicate with them because you think they can read your mind, which we'll talk about. I'll tie this all together shortly. Your team, your partners, as a couple, even if you and your wife or you and your husband or you and your business partner are brilliant people, you will do stupid things collectively if you withhold meaning. And the pool of shared meaning is a birthplace of synergy. So if you're in the Wolf Den or if you're in the CCA or if you're in any of our programs, we're always saying, like, here's this language, here's this framework, here are these tools, right? Because if we can share a language and we can understand what it means to us, we can create something that could not otherwise be created. Right? So the concept of sharing a language, of sharing a meaning, when we say closing the gap, if that means the same thing, it doesn't mean we're all going to the same place, but we all conceptually understand we're just trying to get closer to what we want. It's preference-based, no judgment. We're not judging each other about what we want. We're not trying to force ourselves on, force our opinions on other people. And we're not, to the man with a hammer, everything looks like a nail. We're recognizing we have a hammer and not everything's a nail, right? If we can share that, collectively, we can create things that no other community on the planet can create because they don't have a shared meaning. They think that the way I interpret things, which is all kinds of backwards anyway, which maybe we've learned through Nicsmas that, wow, I don't even know myself. There cannot be synergy. Without synergy, you cannot go exponential. You are swimming upstream and you are slow, linear, incremental gains. You cannot go exponential without synergy. So if you're in the Wolf Den, or if you're in my private group, or if you're in the CCA, or any of the programs, again, you're going to recognize we have a shared language with a shared meaning. It doesn't have to mean the same thing to all of us. The details can be different. Your base case and chill might be different than mine. Your solvable problem might be different than mine, but we can anchor and say, somebody says, hey, Nick, what do you think I should do? Hey, Dicka, what do you think I should do? Hey, Monica. Hey, Mike. Hey, Lisa. Hey, Ann. Hey, Zachary. What do you think I should do? And we can say, well, what's your solvable problem? And immediately we've created something that cannot happen anywhere else in the world. Who else can you go, hey, my solvable problem is this? And they go, all right, well, let's help you find the most efficient path forward. What they're going to do is go, nah, you should want something else. Why do you want that? Or they're going to, man with a hammer, they have their hammer, they're going to think it's a nail, they're going to try to, and, of course the town barber thinks you need a haircut type thing. Okay, so hopefully the essence of Nicsmas, but anywhere you go in my world, the hope is that you're recognizing there's a shared meaning, a shared language, shared frameworks, but we're not sharing the details. We're all not trying to go to the same place. We are accepting we're all different people, and we know ourselves, and we're going to help each other get to where we want to get, not where we think other people should be. So it is a very good book, Crucial Conversations, but if nothing else, just understand that if you withhold what all this means from your wife, you can both be brilliant people, and you're going to make really bad decisions as a couple. Same with your husband, same with your kids, same with your business partners and your employees. Big mistake we make. Talk about that shortly. Okay. Now, remember, this is how I'm going to title together for you. Before you push harder on the gas, take your foot off the brake. We can agree that keeping your foot on the brake is probably the surest way to blow yourself up and run out of resources. Okay, so we must take our foot off the brake. A lot of times we don't want to do that because moving forward, the path forward is easier than dealing with this thing over here. It could be a relationship, it could be a business, it could be whatever. Right? It could be some personal issues that are holding you back. We like to think it's easier to just forget about it, forge forward, and don't realize that ball and chain that we have. Or we realize it, but we don't want to deal with it. I'm already resisting what I think is coming. Yeah, well, that will happen. It will. Good news is, just a suggestion. Nobody's going to pathologize you if you decide not to do it. It's the anti-marketer way. Don't pathologize people. Now remember, also, this is all about behavior modification. It is not sitting around having ideas and being intellectually stimulated. Now, the intellectual stimulation may keep you engaged long enough to be convinced to change your behavior. That's fine. I do things for intellectual stimulation all the time. But the point of it is to figure out how to modify your behavior in order to get from where you're at to where you want to be as efficiently as possible. That's all it is, right? You can quote Nicsmas, you can reinvent it, you can have all these ideas, you can tell all your friends about it. If you don't change your behavior, I have failed. I wasted all my time. Please don't waste my time. Yeah, so it's just behavior modification. That's all it is. And there's always a trade-off. There is always a trade-off. We talked about it yesterday. Let's not abandon. So we have this thing with our kids, with our spouses, with our partners, almost that like, well, you're bound to me, so I can kind of be an a-hole to you, and you're less likely to go away than like somebody else. There's this weird thing we do where we're like, well, we have to be nice to them or they won't be our friends. I could be a little bit of a dick to you because, we're married, a little bit harder to just separate. Which is exactly backwards. That's exactly why your time and effort and resources and bandwidth and communication should go to your spouse, to your kids, to your business partners, to those closest friends that are the most important to you. We talked about that yesterday too. Okay? And if you remember the rocky road from action to intention, that is the dissertation, it was written in 1990 by a Stanford student, which was the tapping. Right? Remember how poor we are at assuming how well we can communicate and how well we're understood. And then remember, even after we communicate it and we see the response, remember how poor we are after communicating. We are at estimating how well we have communicated and it has been heard. I can share this with you. It's very hard for me to find this. A friend of mine actually was going to go to Stanford, get it from the library, and fly it to me. But I found a digital copy. So these are all things that we've talked about. Even if we think, yeah, we're a good communicator, and then even after we communicate, the other person is like 1.5% of the time they accurately guess what we're actually trying to communicate, we still think that we got it with 50% accuracy. So we're not good communicators. We're not. Everybody thinks about intention to action. What is my intent? How do I act? What do we do when things should be working, but they're not, and the answers aren't clear, we invert it. And this Stanford student, all the way back in 1990, it's not new, was perspicacious enough to recognize, I actually think, let me measure action to intention instead of intention to action. Wow, there's the gap. We have done a thing, and we feel like it was interpreted this way, and we were way off. Then they did a thing with a faulty interpretation that we misinterpreted significantly, and now we're all confident about this dialogue, this conversation, this interaction, and we're talking about two completely different things. You want to talk about taking your foot off the brake. Stop miscommunicating and stop misinterpreting. Because you do need other people. Maybe you need one. Maybe you need 100. Maybe you need 1,000. I don't know what your goals are. I don't know what's necessary for you to get to where you want to be. But you're not going to do it alone. And the e-brake that is the most aggressive, that oftentimes is the hardest to let go of, is the fact that you're just not communicating effectively. Okay? So, think about this. We got the window and the mirror. Remember our thought stoppers. Remember literate, numerate, and then what? Echolate. Remember our thought stoppers. How are we stopping thoughts? Well, you know what I mean. Come on. There's infinite possibilities, when in fact there's like 112, right? So something quantifiable, if you take something quantifiable and you call it infinite, it's a thought stopper. You don't actually want people to know the truth, or you are not willing to do the work to effectively communicate the reality. So remember these thought stoppers. And then remember the window and the mirror. How difficult is it for you to recognize when you're looking out a window, when you're looking in a mirror? How often do you get it confused? It's a lot of work, right? Hopefully it's illuminating. Right? I'm just reading some comments as they come in. So we know this is happening. We recognize this in ourselves, hopefully by now. Window in the mirror, okay. And hopefully we can look at the 6-word updates, right? And go, whoa, a lot of other people are also struggling with a window in the mirror. So when we are communicating with somebody else that's very important to us, don't you think it's safe to assume that they may also be struggling with the window in the mirror? They may be looking at you, getting triggered about something that's inside of them, and they don't know. Rocky road from action to intention. You got to take the time to help them understand, no, this is me, not you, or vice versa. I think this is you, not me. Let's talk about it. You can't recognize these things in yourself, right? Change who you are, become more aware, less of an a-hole, and then not have like the wherewithal or the awareness to recognize that the people around you are also struggling with the same thing that you are working through. And you can't communicate with them as if they had just watched Nicsmas, unless they did, right? They don't have, at this point, they may not have the shared meaning. They may not have these frameworks. They may not have done this homework that you've been doing. So you can't come to them saying, I'm a better person now. Like, I get myself better. I'm going to have this conversation with you. And then leave them in the dark about the skill sets and the tools that you just acquired. How can you have an effective conversation? You're the only one now that has this meaning, unless they're also watching Nicsmas, right? So you are now that you have a new meaning, if you do not consciously and effectively articulate it and help your wife, your husband, your business partners, your kids, your parents, whatever, understand that meaning, you're still being an a-hole, because you know now. You know now. You're withholding a meaning, which means you're tapping on the desk and you got all these accompaniments in your head. Happy birthday to you, right? And you got all these accompaniments and you think that, yeah, this sounds just like happy birthday. And all they hear is just some random ass tapping. That's all they hear. And you're thinking to yourself, yep, I just played a beautiful symphony, and that's exactly what they heard. You can't just, that's why, one of the reasons I do Nicsmas, that's one of the reasons I share all of this. I can't just learn this about myself and then think all of you can read my mind and have simultaneously adopted the same accompaniments, the same tools that I have. Why, like, what kind of sociopath would think that? You should just read my mind. Everybody should just tap into my mind and be on the same page as me. So, thought stoppers. I'll tell you a story about a guy named Steve. His last name is Bogle, and I can share that because he's actually a public testimonial. Steve did not like, he was a firefighter in Tampa, Florida. And he just kind of got a little bit overweight. He's in Tampa. It's beautiful there. So he kept trying to get in shape and kept failing. And he stopped going to the pool with his kids. Like, his wife and kids would be like, hey, we're going to the pool. And he'd be like, nah, I just want to watch a football game. And they kind of grew apart. And so his wife is thinking, he doesn't want to spend time with me and the kids. The reality is he was getting more and more embarrassed about taking his shirt off in front of the neighbors. You can see how this can go on for quite some time and spin off to a lot of stories that create a lot of problems. And every time he would try to get in shape, because the meaning of why he would stay in, not go to the pool, he would try and get in shape and start exercising. So her brain goes, he doesn't want to spend time with me and the kids, and he's trying to get in shape. Like, is he trying to get a divorce body? Like, these are the things that happen. This whole time, like, we sat down, we've had a lot of talks about it, we did an interview about it. This whole time, he's thinking, don't they know I don't want to go out to the pool with them because I look like shit without my shirt on? No, they don't. Because, a-hole, people aren't mind readers. The day you decided you were too embarrassed to go out with your shirt on, you didn't tell her. And the day you said, I need to get in shape, your family provided resistance. Because if this is truly about behavior modification, then you should change the way you behave. Agreed? Now, if you wake up one morning and change the way you behave, the people around you are probably going to be concerned, and they should be. When you change your behavior from what people have always known, they have a right to be concerned because they care about you. The thought stopper is, can't you just trust that I'm doing what's best for us? No, that's a thought stopper. What do we say? If you use language to stop thoughts, so you don't have to sit down and do the work to share a meaning, you're being an a-hole. So if you follow through with Nicsmas and your behavior does change in a positive way, do not assume that everybody around you knows it's in a positive way, because guess what? And I know we have some recovered addicts and stuff like that. What does a drug addict say? No, everything's fine. What does a non-drug addict say? No, everything's fine. What does a criminal say? I didn't do it. What does a non-criminal say? I didn't do it. Disordered eating pattern. People that have disordered eating patterns, what do they say? No, I feel the best I've ever felt. What do people that don't have disordered eating patterns say? No, I feel fine. Best I've ever felt. So shame on you for not recognizing that people can't read your mind. You have changed your behavior, and criminals say the same thing that non-criminals do. Does that make sense? So your first thought is you'd be like, I just want to do something nice for myself. Like, is it really that bad? This is for us. Don't you know this is for us? No, because that's exactly what you would say if it wasn't for us as well. So if you're going to modify your behavior, if you're not going to modify your behavior, I don't know why you're here. If you are, you better, in my opinion, in order to not be an a-hole, maybe take this Christmas Eve, this Christmas, this New Year's, and communicate with the people. So what Steve did what Steve did. Said, hey, I think you know this, but you may not. I would love to go to the pool with you guys, but to be honest, I look in the mirror and I hate myself, and it sucks. And his wife goes, well, I look at you and I think you're amazing. So I never would have thought you felt that way. What can I do to support you? Well, I really do want to do this fitness thing. It's not because any other reason other than I want to look in the mirror and feel good about myself and feel good about going to the pool with you and our kid. And she said, well, shit, how can I support you? I had no idea. And then he became one of the best testimonials. This is my old fitness nutrition company, because he had full support of the people that are the most important to him that used to provide resistance. When you recognize things about yourself and you do not communicate it to the people that matter most, you're being an a-hole, and you are creating all kinds of problems, and your defense mechanism is going to be a thought stopper. What, I try to take good care of myself and this is what I get? Yeah, because also if you were like addicted to drugs and getting ready to divorce me, you'd act the same way. So yeah, I need to know what it means to you. That's fair. That's fair for people to need to know what things mean. Shared meaning, right? Because without it, two very smart people can look very, very stupid when they're together and act. 10 smart people can make collectively poor decisions. So we can't read your mind. You may think you communicated. You were tapping on a desk. They have no idea. Hey, I'm going to start getting in shape. And they say, okay, because they don't want to be a bad guy, you know. You're still acting different. They don't understand what it means to you. They don't understand why. You're leaving a lot up to chance. And these are the 2 or 3 or 4 people that actually matter to you. You're not taking the time. They can't read your mind, right? So hopefully that makes sense. What I encourage you to do is really think about a lot of Nicsmas and communicate it with somebody. And don't catch yourself. Well, do catch yourself. Catch yourself when your initial reaction is a thought stopper. You're trying to end the conversation because you don't want to go any deeper. You don't want to admit the things that you need to admit. You don't want to say them out loud. You've journaled about them, but you don't want to say them out loud. Stuff like that. What do you think is going to happen over a long period of time? Weird question. How would this work in a hostile environment with hostile people? Well, the question would be, why are hostile people so important to you? That's one. I would go back to the investor frame. Given what I know now, would I opt into this situation? You can't just apply everything. Like, you can't just pick and choose what you apply here. So the way you diffuse and you get crucial conversations, if it's a hostile people, hostile situations, you have to develop what is called a safe space, which is, hey, this is the problem I'm trying to solve. Right now, I'm trying to explain how I feel about this. And if this conversation becomes anything other than coming to a solution, it's over. We will revisit it later. Which means if you say a spouse, you say, okay, this is the conversation. I believe our kids should go to public school. You believe they should go to private school. Let's only talk about the most efficient path to figure out the solution. Okay, if it ever comes about you're dumb, I'm dumb, anything other than right, you're right, I'm wrong. Well, remember when this happened 3 years ago about this other thing. If it ever becomes anything about finding an effective solution to what we have predetermined this conversation is about, the conversation is over. We will revisit it when you calm the fuck down. If you cannot have that conversation with that person over any amount of time, I would look at the investor frame, and personally, I would say, no, I would not opt into a situation where we cannot come to a solution, because it becomes more about being right, being hostile, domination, whatever. And if you choose to stay in that situation, then you may not be able to apply these frameworks, and you forfeit the right to complain. And I certainly never said any of this was easy. but you can't continue to violate your own economic personal principles and then apply a framework to get closer to what you want while you are actively violating your own economic personal principles. Right? So we're going to jump to VIP in just a minute. Your homework. Communicate. If you're not ready, get the book Crucial Conversations and just read it, think about it, write about it. And remember the communication. It's not to be heard. Don't go listen. Like, so many people demand to be heard. It's ridiculous. I just want to be understood if possible, but it's not your job to understand me. It's my job to be impossible to be misunderstood, which means you have to have an environment, like I just said, you have to have an environment where we can agree what we're trying to accomplish here is I am trying to explain to you how I feel and what I want to do. You don't even have to respond or say yes or no. What are we trying to accomplish? This is for very difficult conversations, not all conversations. This is what we're trying to accomplish. And if it ever veers off into something that happened last summer or something about money or whatever, if it ever veers off, somebody has to have the discipline to end the conversation and say, we'll come back to this later. It's not easy. You can't do all this work and not gift it to the people around you because you still got a big fatty break on if you don't. So your homework is to at least one person communicate. You could put them through Nicsmas and then talk to them. So you have a little bit more of a shared language. It's, I want to talk to you about some stuff I want to do. Allegiance capital, okay? You see how this all ties in? I'm telling you right now, I want you to be aware. My behavior is going to change a little bit. You might recognize I'm acting a little bit different. It's intentional. And this is what it means to me because I realize this about myself. And I don't like feeling that way. And I don't think it's fair to you. I don't think it's appropriate. I don't think you're getting the best version of me. Whatever it is, you tell them the truth about why the behavior is changing. But the allegiance capital is telling them it's coming. So when they observe it, they are not alarmed. Because if anybody in your life starts acting differently tomorrow, you are going to be alarmed. Right? So, yeah, if we start acting differently, people are going to be alarmed unless we tell them it's coming and why and what it means. And all those little passive-aggressive comments or little points of friction will likely turn into support. And then you can accomplish things. It is not about either work or family. It's not. It almost never is. You have not communicated to your partners, your employers, your employees, your vendors, and your clients what is important to you and why, and you have not communicated to your family what is important to you and why. So you think it's work versus family. It's not. It almost never is. I could tell all of my clients, hey, most important thing is I'm spending time with my dogs for the next 2 days. And they would say, yeah, that makes sense. Thank you for letting me know. Because this is a skill that has become very important for me to develop. They can't read my mind. I can't just disappear for 2 days and say, oh, sorry, I was with my dogs. Okay. So think about that. Communicate. We're going to go same Zoom link as yesterday. It's in, you know where to find it. And we're just going to hang out for half hour, 45 minutes, whatever, 10 minutes if nobody has anything to say. As I mentioned here, how does everything sell out immediately before it's even announced publicly? We will see, because the other thing that happens is people get 10 times more than what they thought after they purchased typically. Hopefully you guys got a lot more than you thought when you joined Nicsmas, which was no purchase. So the hope is that the CCA sells out before I have to make a call to action, and you're going to blow some minds with what we're bringing to the CCA students over the next year. So if you put your deposit down, or if you're Nicsmas decentralized, go ahead. In about 1 minute, I'll fire up that Zoom, and we'll just have a dialogue like we did yesterday. I appreciate y'all. Please feel free to share this with anybody that would benefit. I will leave this replay up probably for about 24 hours. If you don't change your behavior, you miss the point entirely. You've wasted a lot of hours. If you do change your behavior and you do not have those conversations, you are wasting a lot of time in the future. You are creating a lot of friction for yourself in the future. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. It all tied together. Had no plan. It just, when you play your game your way, things tend to come together very naturally. So hopefully it's been a good example of that. You guys have a great Christmas Eve. I will be live tomorrow on Christmas. Last year we had a huge turnout on Christmas, so we'll see. Appreciate all of you.